weekday mornings at 9.
30 on a Wednesday morning. You're looking out. Yes, that's the George Washington Bridge and the Hudson River. As Willard would say, that's Short Hills, New Jersey, if you play it far, 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 far left. But Willard's not here on this Wednesday. Joe Whitty is sitting in.
You'd say it was Short Hills, Chicago now.
That's all right. Straight ahead in this half hour, we're going to be profiling former Governor, former Treasury Secretary John Connally. He's gone from the corridors of powers and money to bankruptcy. Fill us in on what's happened to him. Nancy Collins will be along. Jane?
And we here at Today have a special interest in China. We're going to China the last week in September, so we found especially fascinating a book by a Yale grad who spent 2 years living in China teaching them English. Interesting story. And making himself an expert in the martial arts. Very interesting story in this half hour.
And we'll also be talking with Harrison Ford. He's working on a new movie in Paris, a movie being directed by Roman Polanski. It's a thriller in which he plays a doctor. Let's go to the news desk. Here's John Paul.
Thanks, Brian. In the news this morning, a U.S. debriefing team is in London at this hour to talk with the released American hostage Charles Glass. Glass just arrived in London himself this morning after spending his first day of freedom in Damascus. Glass recounted his story of escape from his captors in Lebanon and talked about his time of captivity when he was chained, blindfolded, and threatened with death. Some U.S. officials are saying the Glass escape story is plausible, but suggest another theory, that Iran, under pressure from Syria, ordered the kidnappers to let Glass escape so Iran could rebuild credibility in the Arab world. A new convoy of U.S. registered weighed anchor and is sailing through the Persian Gulf at this hour this morning. Shipping sources in the Gulf say the tankers and 3 warships sailed through the Strait of Hormuz. They're now headed for Kuwait. The Navy ships reportedly include a small, fast-moving patrol boat filled with armed American military personnel. It's believed the military escort will drop off these tankers in Kuwait and then pick up the new ones that are there now, loaded and ready to head back down the Gulf. Investigators are narrowing down possible causes for Sunday's crash of Northwest Airlines Flight 255 in Detroit. While evidence does not yet point to any one specific reason, investigators are focusing on wind shear, shifting winds that were reported on one runway just 30 minutes before the fatal takeoff. Meanwhile, families were taken to a makeshift morgue to help identify the victims. More than half of the victims have now been identified, and while the search goes on for clues, of the sole survivor of that plane crash, 4-year-old Cecilia Shahan, and she's been upgraded from critical to serious condition. Hospital orderly Donald Harvey pleaded guilty in a Cincinnati court Tuesday to murdering 24 people, but Harvey's lawyer says his client told him the list of victims is closer to 54. In a courtroom packed with victims' families, the prosecutor said Harvey has a compulsion to kill just like some people have compulsions for a milkshake or a cold beer. Most of Harvey's victims were patients at hospitals where he worked. He was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms, avoiding the death penalty by pleading guilty. The scales of justice tipped in a different direction for Vincent Palecchio. He's a free man this morning. Palecchio is the retired movie studio electrician who escaped from a Virginia chain gang 41 years ago. He's been living a crime-free life in California, but earlier this month, his past caught up with him and he was arrested and jailed without bond. He's awaiting extradition in Virginia. But back in court Tuesday in Los Angeles, the judge delivered the surprising news that Virginia's governor issued a full pardon for Palecchio. He is free to go. His 10-year sentence for breaking into a store commuted. Palecchio said he would go home and do what he's always done, tend his garden. And finally, baseball's Paul Molitor watch. The Milwaukee Brewers' designated hitter did it again last night against the Cleveland Indians, continuing his hitting streak to 33 consecutive games. Molitor was 0 for 3 when he came to the plate in the 6th inning. He hit a grounder to short and beat the throw to first. Molitor's 33-game hitting streak is now tied for the 10th best this century. Didn't help the Brewers, though. They lost to the Indians 9-8 in 12 innings. It's now a little past 34 after the hour. Back to Brian.
See where some people are talking about putting an asterisk next to his hitting streak? Because he's done the entire thing as a DH, which puts a new stamp on all the others. All the other guys had to play in the field as they continue. It doesn't shortchange his achievement at all. It's just different.
Yeah.
But you knew that. Let's press ahead. Joe Whitty has a check of the midweek weather in just a moment. Then we'll check out the tough times for John Connally. That's right after this.
Tell all the world.
That label stands for quality.
It stands for fashion, and it stands for America.
And that's why it matters.
So ask for and buy made in the USA.
Tell all the world America matters to you.
Heaven got time.
trick to lifting is use the legs, never the back. But after 8 hours of it, even I get sore, so I take Metaprin.
Metaprin has the same medicine as Motrin, and nothing's proven faster for relief of body pain or any kind of pain. And Metaprin is gentler to your stomach than aspirin.
When you get paid by the hour, you haven't got time for the pain.
When your body hasn't got time for the pain, Metaprin for fast relief.
Introduce your carpet to a fresh new day, the Arm & Hammer way.
Arm & Hammer Carpet Deodorizer is now improved with exclusive Vacuum Right to keep carpets cleaner than other carpet deodorizers. Keeps them fresh, too. Arm & Hammer Carpet Deodorizer penetrates deeper and destroys odors, while Vacuum Right repels dirt. Use it each time you vacuum for fresh and cleaner carpets the Arm & Hammer way.
Keep your carpet fresh as a brand new day, the Arm & Hammer way.
Zippity-doo-dah. Post makes the only bran flakes with new Zip Pack freshness to keep their high fiber, best taste fresh longer. I zip when I should have do that.
Post natural bran flakes with Zip Pack freshness.
Zippity-a.
7:36 in Willard's absence on this Wednesday morning. Joe Whitty's bringing us up to date on the weather. Joe?
Thank you, Brian. And just in case you didn't know it, there is a magazine about weather for you laymen. Comes out twice a month. It's called Weatherwise. And we've got some wonderful photographs from their photo contest that they have every once a year. Let's take a look at some of those photographs. You see a beautiful shadow shot of those towering cumulus clouds at the lower edge, on the shadows way up on the upper air clouds overhead. Now, the next shot is also a beautiful one taken by Christopher Reeve, Phoenix, Arizona, a thunderstorm with blue skies overhead. The third winning shot is another beauty. Look at this. This is the underside of a very severe-looking thunderstorm cloud over the Colorado Wheat Range area. Now, the fourth shot shows you really don't have to go too far. You can just look out your window. This shows little angel wings, frost, forming right on the windows there in Forest, Pennsylvania. Thanks to the Weatherwise folks for letting us share those photographs with you. Now, there will be some strong thunderstorms if you want to get your camera out in the midsection of the country, but you may want to give yourself some protection, too, because some of these could be on the strong side by late this afternoon. The other area, perhaps a few scattered thunderstorms from New England down through the Carolinas, rather widely scattered, however. In the west, a continuation of your beautiful sunny skies with pleasant temperatures, except the southwest, sizzling hot. That's my national forecast. Now, here's what's happening in your neighborhood.
Good morning. John Ed Thompson here with your TV 10 AccuWeather forecast. Another warm and humid day along the coastline with variable cloudiness. 60% chance of afternoon showers with a high of 92, low tonight 75.
Coming up in the next half hour, an update on the new ozone expedition headed down south. And now here again is Brian.
All right, Joe. Thank you. 7:38 now. John Connally. At one point, he seemed to have had it all. Former three-time governor of Texas, Secretary of the Treasury under Nixon, Secretary of the Navy under JFK. But his carefully constructed life came apart earlier this summer when he had to file for bankruptcy. Nancy Collins joins us this morning to begin a two-part interview with a very beleaguered man. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, Brian. When John Connally failed in his bid for the 1980 Republican presidential nomination, he decided he wanted to become big rich, so he partnered in a company, and alas, that went bankrupt last year for $260 million. So I went to Texas, and I asked Connally if this was a difficult decision.
Yes, it was a difficult decision. It's still a painful status in which I find myself, but I've always tried to be a realist and a pragmatist, and there was nothing else I could do.
There has been some criticism that the company was not as well run as it might have been, that in fact you and Mr. Barnes were insatiable gamblers, as someone put it. As soon as you had one deal, you were on to the next.
I think that's true. That criticism is valid. I don't think we consolidated our position as well as we should. We were moving too quickly, but this is probably the worst economic period, certainly in my lifetime in this state, and I think it's probably as bad, if not worse, than the Depression of the 1930s.
Now, on the personal level, declaring Chapter 11, what does that mean? Will you have to sell everything you own, or how much money will you have left?
No, I'll have to sell all of my assets, and that includes community assets, furniture, fixtures, china, silver, crystal, rugs, paintings, everything except what Nellie has as her personal property. So basically, we keep our ranch home under the law. We keep 200 acres. We keep $30,000 worth of goods, that's all. We will lose everything what we've accumulated over a lifetime.
It must be very painful to see these things go.
It is painful, and it's frustrating, and it's irritating, and it's galling. We both came from very modest, what today would be called poor surroundings. And I guess like any poor boy, when you get a few dollars, you want to buy something. You want to buy something, you want to have things, you want to keep things, you want to look at things.
Are you afraid at all about the future?
No, not the least. Not the least. I have no fear whatever. I suppose that's one of the reasons I'm in trouble. I've always been an optimist. I've always been very confident in my ability to survive and to overcome obstacles. I've never been afraid of work.
You and Mrs. Connally have had an exceptionally close marriage, it appears. And I think it must have been very difficult for you, the man whom she so obviously admires.
I'm not sure she still does, but or should. I'm not sure. I think she does, but I doubt that she should.
But it must have been extremely difficult to have to break this news to her, or to let her know that in fact it was a fait accompli.
She lived through it with me for many, many months. Surprise to her. As a matter of fact, I think it came as a relief to her as it did to me.
What has kept this marriage seemingly so solid over all these years? It's really been a bedrock for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Well, she's been a wonderful, understanding companion and mate and friend and wife and lover and, you know, everything you could ask of a human being. And she's been supportive. She's been tolerant. We have always done things that I'm sure that pleased her. I think she would have been happier if I'd never gotten involved in politics at all.
And you have 3 children living, and you had one child who died.
Yes, we lost a daughter. And
what happened there?
she was killed in Florida. This was in 1959.
1959. Do you mind if I ask how she was killed?
By a gunshot.
How did that happen?
I don't really know. I never have fully known. I think the coroner's verdict was that it was self-inflicted.
That must have been very painful for you.
Oh, yeah, it's by far the worst thing we've ever suffered.
And how old was she at that time?
I guess she was 17.
You've had very interesting and very strong brushes with destiny in your life, haven't you? How do you feel about that? Most people don't have that in their lives.
Well, I think it gives you the strength of perspective, and it gives you a realization of values. This is why I think both of us can, with considerable equanimity, bear this bankruptcy. Because in the final analysis, we're giving up things. But there are a lot of things in this world. You can always reacquire things. You can't reacquire family, friends. You can't necessarily reacquire health. We have health. We have friends. That's where our riches are. And that's what's important to us, really.
Seems his biggest mistake was personally signing for the loans. Tomorrow, what's he talking about?
Lyndon Johnson, John Kennedy, and that day in Dallas, November 22nd, 1963.
All right, Nancy. Thanks very much. 44 past the hour. We'll come back in just a moment right after this.
Great looks start with Cross Your Heart. It's not just a smile that gives you that style. Great looks start with Cross Your Heart. For a look that's smashing, oh, so dashing. Great looks start with Cross Your Heart. From Playtex, the fit that makes the fashion.
College isn't all fun and games, you know.
Oh, yes, it's very serious, Daddy.
That's why
We got my computer.
IBM introduces the Personal System 2 that fits a college room and budget.
I'll do my term papers with it.
And?
My lab reports.
With power and graphics that earn top grades.
And?
Economic problems.
And?
Ride home once a week.
Smart girl.
The newest member of the IBM Personal System 2 family.
I want my Serta. Here's why people want their Serta. Only Serta goes beyond just being firm. We top our support with the extra comfortable Serta surface, a unique difference you can feel in a Serta Perfect Sleeper.
Marvin, I want my Serta.
Serta Perfect Sleeper is on sale now during our coast-to-coast truckload sale at participating retailers. But hurry, the trucks are rolling now.
Kmart, America's favorite place for the things kids need to get through the summer, would like to remind you that we're also the place for all the things kids need to get back to school. America's favorite store, Kmart, the saving place.
In 1982, just out of Yale with a degree in Chinese language and literature, Mark Salzman set out for China on a 2-year stint teaching English, and he came back an expert in the martial arts. Iron and Silk is his account of his adventure, and it holds special interest for us on Today because Today and all of NBC News head for China the last week in September. And welcome.
Thanks.
Let us go back before the Phi Beta Kappa Summa Cum Laude degree from Yale to a movie that changed your life. It was Kung Fu.
Yeah, well, actually, it was all of those things from Hong Kong. You know, I just lived on those Saturday afternoon things with, you know, the two guys fighting for 25 minutes. And
like, were you 12, 13? And
yeah, I ate it up. I loved it because what really inspired me about these characters is they were always pretty small like I was, and I wasn't particularly impressed at the way they would fight. What really impressed me is the way they were impervious to humiliation, you see? I was always getting milk thrown on me in the cafeteria, and so, you know, I thought, gee, if I learn this martial art, then I too won't get upset when people make fun of me. So that was my...
So your interest in Chinese literature and language was preceded by your interest in Kung Fu.
Yeah. You see, I got interested in the Kung Fu, so then I went to Kung Fu schools, you see, but that always ended up being a little disappointing because I had this image of this magnificent art form, but instead I ended up getting teachers that were like, all right, 1,000 push-ups, you know, this kind of thing where, you know, it's like, and you have to walk through violence to walk in peace, this kind of attitude, and so I sort of lost interest. But then, luckily, I met some Chinese Americans who encouraged me to take up Chinese painting, calligraphy, and reading, and by the time I was about 17, I was kind of caught up in it.
And you were proficient by Western standards, even as you went there. Would you explain the demonstration you were forced to give upon meeting China's foremost expert in wushu?
Well, when I got over to China, you know, I didn't really expect I'd be able to study with any of these real famous coaches because I'd heard they were very conservative. But I was invited to go visit this man's troupe and see them perform. And at the end, after they'd done this tremendous, I'd never seen anything like it, then the teacher, Pan, Iron Fist in China is his nickname, he gets up and he says, I understand that this American has been practicing Chinese martial arts for 9 years. Let's have him do a demonstration like this. Of course, I said I had a broken leg, I can't do this. But he said, doesn't matter, use the other leg. So the only thing, you know, I figured, now, I can't do a Chinese routine because I'd make a complete fool of myself. So what I did was, making it up on the spot, I said, well, I'll show you something you wouldn't have a chance to see. It's called on-the-street boxing. Of course, I never, you know, there is no such thing. But what I do is I mixed in, I got all the young athletes to clap out a syncopated rhythm because disco was hot in China at the time, so they were all loving it. So as they're doing all this, I just ran around and jumped and kicked and rolled and snarled. And
to a syncopated beat.
Yeah, and at the end, you know, it was all done. All athletes, the young people, they loved it. They're like, oh, this is wonderful. Oh, American syncopated boxing. But Pan, of course, wasn't too impressed. And he walked about this close. He just said, no, 不是功夫. That's not Kung Fu.
Not impressed.
Yeah.
Let us show what you can do. And this is a piece of tape, and the, routine, is that the correct word, is called Drunken Sword.
Right.
Tell me about it as we watch.
Well, the story of the Drunken Sword is that the student of a famous sword teacher in China a couple of 100 years ago just could never seem to match the master in skill, and finally gave up in despair. He always got nervous somehow at the last moment. So he goes to this wine shop and gets himself terrifically drunk, and the master, meanwhile, goes out looking for him, because after 10 years of training, he says, you can't just leave. So he walks into the wine shop, drags the student out, gives him a leather sword, and says, you know, I'll teach you a lesson, I'll teach you to just run away like that. So they have this sparring match, and the student, for the first time in his life, was relaxed. He was so drunk, and he ended up just cleaning up. And so all the other students who were watching then went on to begin their training in this new style by going to the bar and getting drunk. So you're supposed to feign drunkenness, as you know, and always at the last minute, just as you look, you're off balance, and voila, then you regain at the last second.
Brilliant. The man's good. Look for the movie in, what, about a year and a half, Iron and Silk, starring Mark Salzman. Good to meet you.
Thanks a lot.
And we'll be back after station break.
It'll be a year of discovery.
What the hell is that?
I believe it's called an earring.
Does your mother know about that?
It's one of hers.
Oh, boy.
A year in the life, Monday.
Who do you know who drives a Yugo? At Yugo of Pensacola, we know plenty of people with a quality automobile and quality service after the sale. Everybody's talking about Yugo. But don't just take our word for it. Listen to our customers and your neighbors.
I've owned my Yugo since January. It gets great gas mileage. I drive around town all day long, and the service I get here is first class.
Yugo of Pensacola, we're your neighbors too.
Come home to Oprah, weekday afternoons at 3.
According to most critics, Harrison Ford took a wrong turn down the Mosquito Coast, but is now getting back on more solid ground. He's starring in a thriller directed by Roman Polanski titled Frantic. Our man in Hollywood, Jim Brown, traveled to Paris to file this report.
All right, stand by for picture. Silence complet.
In the last few years, Harrison Ford has filmed Witness in the wheat fields of Pennsylvania, the Mosquito Coast on the beaches and in the jungles of Belize, and now, here in the streets and alleys of Paris, he's shooting a contemporary thriller called Frantic.
Cut. Very good. Print.
In this movie, Ford works for the first time with director Roman Polanski, a man who can no longer come back to the United States after fleeing the country just before sentencing for unlawful intercourse with a 13-year-old girl, and who, creatively, is coming off an expensive box office failure, the movie Pirates. Ford comes to this film as a new father. He and his wife, screenwriter Melissa Matheson, had their first child earlier this year. And it was his wife that led Ford to Roman Polanski.
I first met Roman, my wife is doing a screenplay for him, for Steven Spielberg, who's producing it. And she came to have a story conference with Roman, and I just tagged along. And after I'd been there for a couple of days, Roman suggested that I might be interested in reading a script that he had. And then it all just began to come together. It's a story about an American heart surgeon who comes to Paris to read a paper at a medical convention. His wife and he arrive in town, they check into a hotel, and while he's in the shower, his wife disappears from the room, from the hotel, it disappears. And the story is concerned with his finding his wife.
Tell me how Polanski mesh.
Well, it's always hard to describe, but it's been very easy from the beginning. We seem to have no trouble understanding each other and coming to a common point of view about things.
Did you realize when you looked at the script for Frantic how much this character of Walker is there all the time?
No, I didn't realize when I read it that I was in every scene, which I'm told is common to many of Roman's films, that he takes the main character's point of view and stays with it all through the film. It means a lot more work for me than I had imagined.
I'm a changed man, Mother. No more chemicals or poisons. If what you want isn't washed up on the beach, you probably don't need it.
Frantic is Harrison Ford's first film since Mosquito Coast, a movie in which for the first time he played a lead character who dies. A movie one writer subtitled Harrison Ford and the Jungle of Gloom.
Nothing anybody said made me reassess the value of having tried that film. And I think in many ways it was successful. You know, I was not displeased with that film. I was not happy it didn't do better than it did.
Tell me about Harrison Ford, the new father.
Well, I'm delighted by the new baby. It's great to have a chance to sort of start over, raising a family again. My first set of kids are now 18, 21. And new baby's about 5 months old, and we're having a great time. I'm looking forward to the next 20 years. It's been great. I've really enjoyed it. My wife is her first child, so it's an important part of our relationship.
Am I correct now that after Frantic, hiatus, and then Indiana Jones 3 coming?
Yeah. I've got about, I think about 6 months off, which I'm really looking forward to. And then another Indiana Jones film.
And will that be the last one?
Never say never.
No, that's been done already, that film.
I don't know. I mean, I would think it's likely to be the last. But you never know.
Tomorrow, this report on the filming of the movie Frantic will continue when we talk to its director, Roman Polanski. For today, Jim Brown, NBC News, Paris.
We'll come back in just a moment, close out our first hour right after this.